Welcome back, I'm Arumba. Thanks for tuning in. This will be the 5th episode in our Let's Play Masterwork Dwarf Fortress. Again, I'm using Windows 7, so it's very convenient, I think, to use the right-click and pin to taskbar for this type of program, since you've got to boot up 3 separate things each time you want to play. So let's fire up SoundSense first, Dwarf Fortress next, and we'll get into the game, get the music going. And this episode, what I want to cover is some of the kind of preliminary interface type things, and also show you how to use Dwarf Therapist to now get your dwarves assigned some labors. Since I didn't go through and actually give them any skills to begin with, we need to figure out how are we going to decide who does what. Now, there's a few different ways that you can do it. For instance, if you've never used Dwarf Therapist before, this is an add-on to the game. It's created by somebody else, and it's a unit manager type thing for not just the dwarves but also animals. You can butcher animals from here. There's a lot of different things that you can do with it. So one way that you could assign labors is you could just pick people at random. You could just say, well, I want 2 miners, I want a woodcutter, a mason, 1 stone detailer, and a butcher, right? You could do it like that. There's a problem with that, though, and that's that dwarves have preferences. Depending on the dwarf, if we look in this window here, we can see, actually let's look at the tooltip. We can see their preferences. This dwarf, Bamrek Olonbetan, likes working outdoors and only grumbles mildly at inclement weather. He likes wormwood, vine bone, inkhorn hoof, etc. We can also see that his stats are over here. He's quite strong. He's mighty she is mighty for a dwarf. She is quick to heal, good intuition. However, she has very poor spatial sense and very poor focus. These stats affect whether a dwarf is going to be good at certain roles in the game. So, there's another way that you can assign labors. You can go to the Roles tab and then see, okay, who is going to be my best miner based on their stats and preferences. Well, we can see that Tobal is a 98% fit, 97.53%. So she's very likely, she'd be a good fit for a miner. Takuth is 62%, Id is 56%, and then these guys are low. Serral is only 11% fit for it. Now, if I were to just assign a dwarf to a labor, even if they were very unfit for it, eventually they would become good at it. And so you could just go with our first strategy, which is just assign labors however you want and let them work it out later. The only problem with doing that is that because they have these preferences for certain things, like for instance, this person is, she's very weak, and she has very poor kinesthetic sense. It's going to take her a long time to skill up the miner role. And also, she's pretty likely to have some happiness problems, because the things that she's doing are going to, it's going to make her unhappy to be dealing with that type of a role. So what I was doing before is I used to just go through and say, okay, well, Tobal would be a good miner, so there's my miner. And you can actually fire up Dwarf Therapist outside, like before you've even embarked. So you can take your initial 7 dwarves here and pick out the labors that you want them to have and try to min-max it, make it perfect. But that's a lot of work. There's something even better, and that's called the Optimizer. Now this is something that I'm very excited to talk about because I've never seen a tutorial on this online. And I had to figure it out myself, but I'm glad to show the information, show the knowledge to you so that you can use it. So what I did is before I created a optimization plan, I called it First Try because I was just experimenting with it. What this does is you determine how many jobs you want your dwarf to have at most. We want to decide whether or not they're going to be a hauler, how many of the total jobs in the fort are going to be modified and controlled by the optimizer, and then I can exclude things like active military dwarves, if they're in a squad, if they are a noble, or if they're hospitalized. So what I did is I went through, and I'm going to explain in more detail in another episode how to actually do this part, but I created an optimization plan. And so if I do this, if if I select all the dwarves and then I click the optimize button, it's going to go through and automatically determine, based on their roles, who is going to be good at what. So for instance, it put Tobel as the miner and a carpenter. It put Bomrick as the animal trainer. And if we look at the roles tab, we can see Bomrick is going to be a pretty damn good animal trainer. Not the best, because Id was more useful to us with a role as the mason, the weaponsmith, armorer, blacksmith, etc. And these two dwarves ended up getting all the hauling tasks, because apparently they are the most worthless in the fort. So the optimizer makes it very easy to manage your dwarves, and here's the real reason this is important. I find it very easy to manage dwarves when you've got, say, 20 or 30, and you can go through and individually play around with the roles, but the problem is that eventually you get such large migration waves that you end up spending more time managing your dwarves than you do actually playing the game. So the optimizer takes away all of that work, makes it very simple, and that's essentially the reason behind it. So now that we've got the optimizer in place, we are able to now go in and actually what I will do, so I use the optimizer, but keep in mind I did take 3 picks. I'm going to have it sort by the role rating, and then I'm going to just assign some extra labors on top of that. And I've accidentally lost my woodcutter, so let's see who the next best woodcutter be. So I'm using the optimizer to try to get everything done, but and then I'm also going to turn on, in the very beginning, I like to have everybody as hauling, even though the optimizer tried to make them, prioritize just the 2 stupid people do it. I also like to have 1 extra mason, even if there's duplicates here, just so that things will get built pretty quick. And I need a couple stone crafters to build my initial sets. So we'll have some overlap here in their roles, but essentially I'm able to get it set up so that I've got my basics. So now we can go back to the game itself, and let's talk about the interface of the game. Now, I'm going to talk to you about this game like you've never heard of it or never played it before. So if you have played it before, bear with me, but I've got to make sure that if you're brand new to it, that it doesn't get you turned off right away and that you're going to take the time to look into it. So let's just take a look at what we see. When you first join the game, you're going to start at this screen. You can change it by pressing Tab. That's going to cycle through the various different methods that you can observe the game. I normally play in this mode with just the menus over here and a big screen. But in the beginning, you might want to use this view so that you can look around. Now, when we're looking around, this game is played in a 2D view, but it is a 3D game. You can zoom up, and actually, before we even play, I've got to go through and I've got to modify my key bindings. I did download the game fresh so that I had the same version that you will, but there's certain key bindings that I feel I just have to have. So let's press Escape, and we're going to go to Key Bindings and General. And so a couple of the ones that I have to change right away is Zoom In to me should not be the mouse wheel. I'm going to change it to, let's add key binding, and I'm going to make it Control mouse wheel. So Zoom In's Control mouse wheel up, and then I'm going to remove this one. Zoom Out is going to be Control mouse wheel back, and I'll remove this one. And other than that, there's only 2 others that I like to change. Move view cursor up and down. To me, it makes a lot more sense. I don't like using the greater than sign or the less than sign for this. I'm going to change it to add binding. To me, zoom in, or like move the cursor view through the world, should be mouse wheel forward. That's just what makes sense to me logically. And then mouse wheel down to go, actually I think I just did it backwards. Mouse wheel up. If I want to go up, then this should be roll the mouse wheel towards me. Yeah, that makes sense. And if I want it to go down, I should be rolling the mouse wheel forward. And then as a backup, I also like to use, sometimes I like to use the page up, page down buttons. And you can actually overlap these. So to move it up, we'll do page up as well. So we've got 2 buttons we can use for that. And let's add another one here, page down. Exit and save and exit. Okay, so now I can zoom in like this using my mouse wheel. I'm going up and down and up and down. Very efficient, very convenient, I think. And if I still do want to zoom in on the game, I can hold Control and use the mouse wheel like this. You can always press F10 to get back to your normal view. Now, this is interesting. So this is white space, or blue space, I guess. This is air. We have a sheer cliff face here. It's very steep. These are ramps showing you the elevation. So it's a very steep, steep, steep hill. In fact, there's like a pit here down in the ground. And off here to the right. Oop, I still need to modify those key boundings a little bit more. Page up and page down are still bound to something. Let's find them. Page up, page up. I think it was bound to one of these in here. There they are. Yep. So let's remove cursor up and left, up and right. So yeah, let's just get rid of that. See, there's numerous ways to move around, and I think the reason it's got so many of them in here is because, yeah, let's shift page up, page down. It's because if you're playing on like a laptop or something, you don't have a number pad, they need to give you some more ways to control it. You can modify everything to your liking. But so now when I press it, it's just moving me up and down one layer at a time. Where the mouse wheel is very quick, I can use this for fine control. Alright, so down in the top right corner we see we've got that river that we wanted. There's an animal there. And now let's talk briefly about that mouse stuff that I was mentioning. So Dwarf DF Hack comes bundled with this, and it's going to run in the background. There's nothing you can do about it. Just let it run. It's okay. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't hurt your system. It's very simple. But what it does is, like, if I click on this, it'll tell me right away it's an alligator snapping turtle. If I, on the other hand, click on soil, it's going to tell me it's peat wall. If I click on a tree, it'll tell me what it is. Normally, if you click without using DF Hack, it's not going to do anything because the mouse has very little input. You'd have to press K to look at a tree and then move the cursor. So I'd have to move it here to see it's an alligator snapping turtle. But notice that this interface here, this isn't the same as this, because this is the View Units, V button. There's actually like 4 different ways you can look at things, and DF Hack makes it so that it intuitively picks the right one just by you clicking on something. So if you want to click on the wall, it'll tell you what it is. I mean, very useful. I find it difficult to play without that feature. Apparently we've got some baddies here, a lion man. And so, let's see. Pressing U, we can see all the units that are on the map. There's 4 pages, 4 tabs to this. Citizens, these are our dwarves. They're all considered peasants because they have no skills. Our livestock, we've got the horses, apparently, that we got 2 horses with our wagon. Some cats, dogs, mastiffs, goats, and hens that we all brought. And then the others is going to be any other animals on the map. So we've got some sand sprites, alligator snapping turtle, and a group of lion men. So these are going to be pretty dangerous, I think. So fur-covered humanoid with the head of a lion. The male has a great mane surrounding its head. He's very fat and enormous overall. We've got completely unskilled dwarves, so I'm a little bit worried about them being too close to us. So, alright, so we actually haven't even let the game run yet, but we did get Dwarf Fortress set up and get the therapist running and take a brief look at the interface. And so in the next episode, we're going to go through a few more of the details of the interfaces, and then we'll start playing. So thank you so much for watching, and I appreciate it. We'll see you soon.